Welcome to your first lesson for this brand new unit on percents. We're going to be starting with 4.3, which corresponds to 4.1, which corresponds to 4.1 in your textbook and your workbook, titled Representing Percents. So if you have your note sheet that looks like the one on the screen here, if you could please take that out and fill in the blanks along with me. So let's define what percent means. Now percent is, it means out of 100, right? So for example, if I had 100 students in grade 8, right, and 34 of them, right, were wearing red one day, I would say that 34% of the students were wearing red. Right? So all percents have a base unit of 100. Now, we can represent a percent by shading on something called a 100 grid. Right? So if you could please write in the word 100 grid as well, which is this that you see right below. Now, each 100 grid has 100 squares, right? 10 by 10. So the shaded part represents the percent that we're talking about. Now, in this particular example, we have 1, 10, so that's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 1, 2, 3. 53 squares are shaded, so this is a diagram showing 53%. Okay, so why don't you please pause the video now and try your own 100 grid, shade in the ones below. 3%, 46%, 97%. Once you're done, right, you can start again. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you got those correct. You can check the answer key that will be posted on the website and see how you did. So let's talk about what percent is shown in each of these grids below. Now, the first one here, right, we've got a row of 10, a row of 20, so it'll be 20-something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 25%. Right, why don't you try the other two on your own? Right, when you've completed that, right, you can start the video again and carry on. Excellent. Okay, now let's talk about what happens when we have something greater than 100%, which happens time and again, so it's a good idea to show how to illustrate this. Now, to represent a percent greater, so you could write in the word greater, than 100%, you're going to need to shade more than one grid. Right? Now it could be 2 grids, 3 grids, right? Infinite number of grids, but you're going to need more than one. So let's take a look at these examples here. Now, this one is 147%. Now I know 100%, right, would be one complete grid, so feel free to shade in that first grid. Right? Your coloring skills are probably a bit better than mine. And then you're going to shade in the extra 47, right? So if this is 100 that's already taken care of, right? 147, 74 more squares to go. So in the second grid here, we've got rows of 10, right? So they're going by 40, and then 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Great. Now, that's what happens when we have more than 100%. Now, in certain cases, like the next one here, we get fractions of a percent or part of a percent. So here's 102.5. Now, to start, it's similar to the one you just did, right? We have 102.5. If we color in a complete grid, right, that will be 100. And we've got 2.5 squares left to go. So let's color in 100 squares, right, or a full grid. And then 2.5 left to go. So 2.5, right, I'd color in 1, 2. Now 0.5 as a fraction is the same as half. Right, so there's half of my square. So far, if you have any questions about what's happening in this video, if there's things that you're unsure, write them down on the side, right? Questions that you want to ask next day in class, maybe below. You can write them here. And the next box we have on our sheet are examples of where we use percents in everyday life. All right, so pause the video, see if you can come up with at least two examples of where you would use a percent in any context in everyday life. When you're done this, right, please start the video again and we'll look at the back of the sheet. Okay, welcome back. So hopefully you got some good examples of using percents in everyday life that we'll talk about in class next day. Let's talk about when we have percents that are smaller than 1. So if we're looking at a percent that includes a portion of a percent, we call this a fractional percent. So you could write in the word fractional. So to represent 3/4 of a percent, or 3/4 on a 100 grid, you would divide one square into 4 sections and shade 3 of the sections. Right? So the number on the bottom tells us how many total squares you need, and then the top number, or the numerator, would be the amount that you're going to shade in. Alright, so let's practice. Now these examples along the left hand side say one completely shaded grid represents 100%. Okay, so what percent does each diagram represent? Now, the first one, if that whole block was colored in, it would be 1%, right? But it's not. It's less than that. So this is going to be a fractional portion of a percent. Now, the total number of pieces, just like what we learned in the fraction unit, will be my denominator. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right, so we've taken that one square, that 1%, and divided it into eighths. Now, of those 8 sections, 7 are shaded. So this fraction, or this percent is 7/8 of a percent. It's smaller than 1%. Right? This is a tiny, tiny, tiny portion, right, of the larger population. All right, let's try the next one. Now this example, right, we've got a whole bunch that are shaded in. Now if each row is 10, right, that's 10, 20, 30, so that's our tens column, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so it's going to be 37%. Now we're not all the way yet to the 38th box, right? We're 37 and a bit. So what fraction of that box, right, I can see here in the enlargement. Now there are 4 sections, one of them is colored in, so this is 37.25%. Now this question doesn't indicate whether or not we shade fractions or percents. Remember that a fraction line, right, also says the same as divide. So if I put into my calculator 1 divided by 4, you'd get 0.25. So another way to write this question would be 37.25%, which is something maybe you'd see more typically in a set of data, right, or another situation. So fractions and decimals, right, interchangeable, and we'll spend more time with that in the next coming days. All right, last one here. Right, this one is not all the way shaded again. It's not a full square, so it's going to be smaller than 1. We've got 2. One of them is shaded, so we've got 0.5%, or most people are comfortable with 0.5. Okay, so take some time, pause the video, and see if you can shade in the following. We've got a situation where we're looking at a 5.4 decrease, right? So shade in 5.4%. Right, 0.3% of the fresh water on the earth is found in lakes and rivers. And the last one, 150%. So you need 2 grids here to complete that. Okay, good luck. Pause the video and start it when you're done. Okay, welcome back. Now, just want to go over the first one, because just to make sure that you're on the right track. And again, right, you'll be able to check your answers online to see how you did. Now we're going to be able to do 5.4. So you're going to color in 5 blocks. So hopefully you already did that. Right, there are your 5 blocks. And to represent the 0.4, right, you're going to take that square, draw a line, right, and enlarge the box. Now this is tricky, right? 0.4. Now if you remember, back in elementary school, we have the tens column, right, the hundreds column. After the decimal point, that's when we talk about tenths, right, and hundredths and thousandths and so on. So tenths means we're talking about fractions out of 10, right? Maybe you have 2 tenths, there's 3 tenths. In this example, 1 decimal place means 4 tenths. So I'm going to take this box, right? The bottom number tells me how many to divide it into total. So I'm going to divide that box into tenths and shade in 4 of those tenths. Right, a bit tricky, right? But once you understand that 1 decimal means a fraction of 10, right? You're off to go. Now, sometimes we can get multiples and lowest terms, right? This fraction, you can reduce this to say 2 over 5, right? Like we did last unit. So some people, maybe you took that enlarged box and divided it into fifths and decided to color in 2 of those fifths, right? Both answers are correct, right? The same amount is colored, right? But we're just looking at different base units, right? So feel free, both answers are equally acceptable, whatever you're more comfortable with. Now, the last part that I want you to try before class next day is this question here. How many 100 grids are needed to show each percent? So this one, if I have 235% and I needed a bunch of 100 grids to color them in, right? Now I've got 200. I'll need another third 100 grid, right, to get all the way to 235%. Right, so try these last two on your own. You are done the video today. Again, I encourage you, any questions that came up here, this will be part of your homework check in class, so please come with it completed, and we will see you next time. Right? Thank you very much.